Today we will introduce you to the most prosperous country in the world. Here the richest and most varied nature, enormous reserves of energy resources and their intelligent development make the inhabitants an extremely prosperous nation. By law, every resident and visitor has unrestricted access to all natural resources, whether in the forest or on the sea. You can walk and swim wherever you want. Almost 100% of the population is connected to high-speed internet. 4 out of 5 people in this country have their own boat or at least a boat. Forests are not cut down at all. It is simply unreal to see trash lying on the ground somewhere in the cities. There are often tables of fruit and vegetables on country roads, with a price tag and a money jar next to them. As much as you took, that's how many bills you put in. No one monitors this. Cheating is just not accepted here. Gasoline costs more than anywhere else in the world. Gasoline prices in this country go up from year to year. Robbery or murder is a national event. Such serious crimes are vanishingly rare here. The country ranks first in the world in the number of electric cars per capita. Since 2009, this state has been the leader of the Human Development Index. Indicators calculated annually by the UN for comparison in different countries, standard of living, purchasing power, life expectancy, and educational attainment of the population. Many houses are not even locked during the day, except, of course, in the big cities where there are many visitors. The country has the lowest reconviction rate, 20%, among released prisoners in the world. This country has the highest number of newspapers per capita on the planet. Number of daily newspapers per capita. The country has about 500,000 lakes of varying sizes. The sun, rain, wind, and fogs often change at a cosmic rate. The residents even joke, "Don't like our weather? Then wait 15 minutes." People here do not collect the gifts of the forest, do not know about mushrooms and berries, do not know the properties of herbs. In a good year, there are so many mushrooms that one person can pick a 100-liter bag of selected white mushrooms in 2 to 3 hours. It is almost impossible to meet beggars in the streets. The exception is in large cities, and it is almost always one of the immigrants. To get a very large loan from a bank at 3 to 4% per annum is not difficult at all. In general, everything is done for the sake of the person. You can plan your life for 10 years ahead, including any expenses and career growth. And the plan is sure to come true. This is Norway, voted the most prosperous country in the world by Legatum ranking. This ranking has been compiled annually since 2007 by a British think tank of an international investment group. It measures the level of prosperity of countries based on the income and well-being of the population. The ranking is calculated for 149 countries and covers 96% of the world's population and 99% of world GDP. The authors of the study believe that global prosperity has been improving in recent years, but the gap between the strongest and weakest countries is widening. Countries were evaluated according to 12 categories: economy, education, entrepreneurship, governance, health, investment climate, living conditions, market access, infrastructure, environment, personal freedom, security, social capital. It took into account 300 different factors. Norway ranks 3rd in economic development, 5th in health and education, 7th in government, and 2nd in personal freedom. The total score enabled Norway to once again officially become the most prosperous country in the world. Norway has not been hindered by the decline in the price of its wealth oil, or the resulting fall in the value of the krona against major world currencies. Many countries are rich, but what sets Norway and some other countries apart is the proper distribution of that wealth. It is very important not to forget that our wealth should be for everyone's benefit. The small difference in wages is another reason why Norway ranks first. The difference between the highest paid and the lowest paid employees is much lower than in many other countries. In addition, The country has high employment rates for both men and women. Norway, this northern country with a harsh climate, is famous for its high standard of living, relatively easy to withstand the global financial crisis. Its economy is stable, is environmentally friendly, and shows a positive trend. The country has very clean water and unpolluted fresh air, and safety standards of industrial enterprises in Norway are so high that they are considered among the best in the world. Why is Norway such a rich country? $1 trillion is an important milestone, is how Yngve Slingstad, head of Norway's sovereign wealth fund, commented that the size of the fund entrusted to him had reached this astronomical sum. 1 trillion, that was the value, as of September 19, 2017, of all assets held by the fund, to which the Norwegian state contributes a portion of its oil and gas revenues each year. The Norwegians themselves sometimes refer to it simply as the oil fund. It is the largest sovereign wealth fund in the world. The next largest is the United Arab Emirates Stabilization Fund, about 15% smaller. Russia's sovereign wealth fund is about 10 times smaller than its Norwegian counterpart. Before oil was found in 1969, the fishing town of Stavanger was for decades the center of herring production, which suddenly disappeared with declining catches after 1870. Stavanger, like the rest of Norway, was left with a huge fleet of wooden sailing ships and an agricultural economy that soon began to lag far behind its thriving industrial neighbors. Oil, however, changed everything. In 1960, the standard of living in Norway was 30 or 40% lower than in Sweden or Denmark. Now the standard of living in Norway is much higher than in these two countries. There are now 70 oil platforms operating in the North Sea. Most of them are owned by Norwegian state oil companies or foreign concessionaires. Drilling and production require ancillary work that affects virtually every industry and, like the tide, lifts the rest of the country's economy. The Norwegian oil industry makes 5 million people rich. The astronomical sum of $1 trillion is far from being just a figure on the books of the Bank of Norway, which formally includes an oil fund in its structure. The main and sole purpose of the fund is to ensure the financial well-being of future generations at the expense of current super profits from the sale of raw materials. For Oslo has no illusions about the infinite flow of petrodollars. As it is literally said in one of the first phrases on the official website, oil will run out one day, but the fund's profits will continue to benefit the people of Norway. As a result, given the country's population of 5.3 million, each Norwegian now has a share of $193,000 in the fund. And all this for about 20 years of the fund's existence. The awareness of the limitlessness of the oil paradise came to the Norwegians in the 1990s. The first allocations from the budget were made in 1996, and in 1998 the history of profitability began. Since then, the fund has grown by an average of 5.9% a year, after deducting inflation and management costs, by 4%. It is noteworthy that during the last global financial crisis, which began in 2008, the fund's assets did not shrink significantly. At the same time, most oil-producing countries then had to use the money of future generations from their sovereign funds, so, for example, in Russia and Kazakhstan, the assets of the funds decreased significantly, and experts even seriously feared their complete depletion. As a result, the Norwegian fund today manages a huge amount invested in more than 9,000 stocks, bonds, and real estate. Moreover, the fund's investment portfolio is completely open and anyone can view it. The fund managers were not afraid to invest most of the money, about 65%, in stocks around the world. The portfolio includes all the leading firms in the new internet economy: Google, Amazon, and others. The fund makes no secret that it reached its phenomenal size thanks to the rise of the stock markets over the past 2 decades. Its population is just over 5 million, population density is low, the central and northern parts of the country are virtually empty, and the islands are partly uninhabited. Employment is very high. About 3/4 of the country's citizens are permanently employed. The high development of the economy and the excellent quality of life is evidenced by the increase in the average life expectancy of people, which is 82 years on average. In an effort to maintain a high standard of living as far as possible, the Norwegian labor market is constantly increasing the number of jobs and additional jobs through the opening of small businesses. The country tirelessly cares about getting higher education for its citizens and has the lowest unemployment rate in Europe. Norway is one of the European leaders in oil production. The total net cash flow from the oil industry for 2019 is estimated by the government at $226,500,000,000. Unlike Russia, the country has a low level of corruption and a high standard of living. Norway ranks first on the list of countries with the happiest populations. Some people think oil is a curse on the country's economy. However, Norway seems to be an exception. It is a democracy here, and at the same time, Norway is one of the leaders in oil exports. One of the main reasons is that Norway was a developed democracy even before it started producing oil. The Norwegians built a state governed by the rule of law, and at that stage we were lucky with the political leadership. They made sure that the decision-making process was transparent, that it was clear who got the licenses and how to control it. It's a predictable, good system because it reduces opportunities for corruption. Today, given the global crisis in the oil industry, the country is intensively developing other sectors of the economy. In addition to hydrocarbon production and energy, it is shipbuilding and metallurgy. Forestry, pulp and paper production, agriculture and fishing are also traditional spheres for Norway. In addition, the country is developing construction, high-tech and innovative industries, astronautics, computer technology and education, which also cannot be discounted. The average salary in Norway allows to live at a decent level. In 2019, the average salary of a working person in Norway was €4,400. Although the tax system in Norway is considered very loyal, many foreigners who come to this country for the purpose of employment, just amazed by the amount of necessary tax payments. So, a migrant who came to work in Norway must immediately prepare for the fact that his salary will be deducted from his earnings to pay taxes. High standard of living and good wages attracts a huge number of migrant workers in Norway. However, to get a job in this country is not so easy. The fact that it is not a member of the EU makes it difficult to find a job, even for Europeans. Norwegian labor market, by and large, closed to foreigners and strictly regulated by the state. In Norway, a stable and rich country, the state promotes a reasonable and fair distribution of income from the sale of hydrocarbons, so the economy of the country, against the background of the global financial crisis, even in the long term, looks quite optimistic. Maintaining a high standard of living of its citizens and actively counteracting the migration pressure that has recently engulfed the whole of Europe, Norway is one of the leaders in energy production. The country's hydroelectric power plants, which take advantage of water from numerous local waterfalls, as well as the rational use of wind and solar energy, allow Norway to continuously increase its energy exports to neighboring countries at a good benefit. All of these factors are undoubtedly the key to the success, stability and prosperity of the country's economy. And if you ask why Norway manages its oil wealth so efficiently, the answer lies in the country's history. Norway has a very strong tradition of equality, dating back to the Viking Age, when groups of free people united under a charismatic leader to engage in sea trade and raiding expeditions, and then shared the profits fairly.